is the McLaren 620R, and it's the latest insane McLaren. I have reviewed a lot of insane McLarens lately, the 765LT, the P1 GTR, and now this. This is essentially the road version of the McLaren 570S GT4 race car, and today I'm going to review it. Before I get started, be sure to check out Cars and Bids, which is my new online enthusiast car auction website for modern cool cars. If you're looking to sell a cool modern enthusiast car, Cars and Bids is the place you'll get the most money and the most visibility for your cool car. And if you're looking to buy a cool car from the modern era, we have amazing variety daily auctions of incredibly cool cars. Check it out, Cars and Bids, at carsandbids.com. First, a little overview. A few years ago, McLaren came out with the 570S as an entry-level model in their lineup, and I reviewed that. Then they came out with a high-performance, track-focused version of that car called the 600LT, and I reviewed that too. Then they came out with an actual race car version called the 570S GT4. And I reviewed that too. And now we have this, the 620R. This is like a 570S GT4 race car except for the road. Sort of like that McLaren P1 GTR that I recently reviewed, except this time it was McLaren who did the road car conversion, not some separate company. This car is sure to upset 600LT owners as it's just a little bit more insane. It has a little more horsepower, 612 horsepower in this, about 20 more than the 600LT. It's also a little bit quicker and it's rarer. McLaren is only making 350 units of the 620R for the world. And today I'm going to review this one, which has a starting price of around $275,000. This one has a sticker price of about $310,000 with options. It's a little more expensive than a 600LT. Now, since I've already reviewed so many similar McLaren models, in this video I'm just going to show you a few of the most interesting quirks and features. Then I'm going to get it out on the road and drive it, and then I'll give it a Doug score. Alright, I'm going to start the quirks and features of the 620R by discussing a few exterior styling touches I like. For instance, these white stripes down the side of the car. They're cool. They sort of frame this air intake. They're vinyl decals. You can take them off, but I like how they look. They kind of help it look like a race car. And really cool, they've carried it on to the reflector in front of the wheels, so it looks like one continuous stripe that's sort of slightly interrupted by the wheels. It just kind of looks cool on the outside. And speaking of the front wheels, I hold in my hand the window sticker for this particular 620R. Like I said, base price around $275,000. This one has a total sticker price of around $310,000, so there are quite a few options on it. Now, obviously, McLaren options are expensive, but there's nothing too insane on here, except over by the front wheels, you have the McLaren Special Operations front fender carbon fiber louvers, which I believe are these things that you're seeing right now. That's carbon fiber louvers on the front fender. It makes sense. The cost of those is listed as $12,080. Just for these little louvers on the front fender? It seems totally insane. They look cool, but $12,000 cool? Actually, $12,080 cool. You gotta wonder how they came up with that little $80 tacked onto the end. But anyway, let's talk getting into the 620R. Now, you walk up to the car, and like most McLaren models, there's no immediately obvious door handle. To open this door, it's kind of a weird process. You have to stick your hand under this body line, sort of into the air intake, and you will find a little rubber door popper in there. You press it with your finger, and then the door pops open, and then you can open it the rest of the way from there. And of course, they open upwards like you'd expect from a supercar's door. But probably the most interesting thing about the doors comes when you climb inside and you can see this red strap kind of hanging off the door. That is factory, and the intent is that you would pull on it in order to pull the door closed, although it's attached to the regular door pull that you would pull in a normal McLaren 570S. They've attached a red strap on there maybe to seem race car-ier. not really sure. It looks totally out of place, like a total afterthought, because it is. It's a little overkill to emphasize the raciness of this car. But anyway, next up, climbing inside the 620R, you really get hit with the race cariness the moment you get inside because of these seats. These are the McLaren Senna seats, these tight racing buckets, and they are unbelievably tight and huggy, and they will keep you in place while you're driving around on a racetrack, but man, are they uncomfortable seats. Very little padding, very stiff, and they're very narrow. You can't be a big person and sit comfortably in this car, or frankly, sit in this car at all. And attached to these racing seats, you can see you have a racing harness, this orange fabric harness back here. You can see it goes through the loops and the holes in the seats, and it connects to this harness bar behind the seats. It's a racing car, so it comes with a racing harness, although you will notice that it also comes with a regular seat belt too. That's regulatory. Even though a racing harness is way safer than a standard seat belt, you can't sell a road car with just a racing harness. It has to have a 3-point belt per regulations, and so this car does. And you can't drive around with just the racing harness buckled either, because then it'll beep at you and tell you your seat belt isn't fastened until you fasten the normal seat belt. And by the way, one interesting thing with the racing harness, you'll note that it's orange, which of course matches the exterior of the car, makes sense, but it doesn't match the fabric door pull on the door. That's red. And that's also true of this netting on the door, little storage area, that's also red, and so is the center line on the steering wheel, also red. So in this interior, you have some orange accents and some red accents. Doesn't really match, looks a little strange, but that's what you get. And next up, a few other quirks in this interior. I have shown off this technology, these buttons and switches and controls in other McLaren model reviews. I will link those in the description below. I'm not going to get into everything again here, but I do like below the infotainment screen, sort of in the footwell, is this plaque that says 620R, and it tells you which number you have out of the production run of 350 cars, giving you a little bit more special feeling every time you glance at it. And one other notable item in this interior is just how much carbon fiber you have everywhere. The seats are carbon fiber, center console is carbon fiber, on the steering wheel, the door panels, the center infotainment screen surround, it's all carbon fiber. And you also have carbon fiber on the ceiling. You can see it's sort of in this Y shape, starts in the center and then splits in two behind the seats. And that's because you have a roof scoop. The 620R has this scoop on the roof that sucks in air, and all that carbon fiber stuff on the ceiling inside is like ductwork to direct the air into the engine behind you. It just looks so cool having a roof scoop, and when you drive around, you hear the induction, the air coming in right above you, and that's just awesome. I love roof scoops on McLaren, so cool. And speaking of notable items on the exterior, how about the wing? Absolutely massive. You can see fixed in place, huge, meant to make you feel racy in the race car, just like those tight seats inside. You also have a crazy graphic on the top of the wing, 620R, huge letters, just in case there was any question that you don't have the regular plebeian 600 LT. And finally, one other interesting item about the 620R, unlike the 570S GT4 race car, the 620R does have a trunk. Press a little button on the key fob, it pops open, and then you can open it up. The interesting thing here is, unlike a normal trunk, there are these scoops going through it. I guess this is for air to channel it through the car for aerodynamic purposes. The result is your trunk is a little bit smaller than normal, but it's in the interests of performance. And I must say, it does look kind of cool to see these scoops in there when you open up your trunk. All right, driving the 620R, and I have to say this car is a little bit unlucky because I've just reviewed the 765 LT and the P1 GTR, and so this, by comparison, I mean, this is an insane car, but by comparison, I literally filmed all three of these videos like 1-to-1-to-1 back-to-back. So this car, by comparison, not really quite the same. First thing you know when you get in here, these seats are just a disaster. I mean, I know there's like a one-upsmanship in the high-performance sports car ownership world where it's like, my GT3 RS seats are really uncomfortable. Yeah, well, my 620R seats are really uncomfortable. Like, people want to be uncomfortable. But like, this is just like, why are you doing this to yourself? And that is also true of the driving experience. Very harsh in this car. You feel every bump, every pavement, thing, everything. But I will say that's one area where this car is actually a little bit lucky, because like I said, I just did the 765LT and the P1 GTR. Those cars were even harsher riding than this car. This car actually feels relatively tame by comparison. All right. Well, it's certainly fast. But again, gets unlucky, not as fast as 765LT, not as fast as P1 GTR, so it's pretty cool, yeah, but, you know, it's just not those cars. Now, I will say I love the roof scoop. You hear that induction noise. It is unbelievably cool to hear, although you're primarily hearing it at lower speeds and when acceleration is just starting rather than when you're full tilt. Wow. Woo! It's definitely a fun car, but it really does feel relatively tame compared to the 765LT, which is something I can't believe I'm saying. This car feels tame compared to anything, but it does. And I've also driven the race car version of this, and that also felt harder edged and more insane. Truthfully, to me, the 600LT is kind of all you need in this world. And, you know, I know people want to have the coolest, the best, the newest thing, but it seemed to me this car doesn't really move the game forward that much compared to 600LT. It feels just as fast, it feels just as hard-edged. You just happen to have a slightly rarer version, but now every McLaren seems to be a special edition, so it doesn't really matter all that much. Truthfully, I think there's a lot to like about this car. It's fast and it's fun and it's exciting, and the acceleration is great. The steering and handling also great. Very, very sharp, very tight. It's an excellent car, it really is. I just question the need for yet another McLaren model. 600LT seems like it established all of this already. And so that's the McLaren 620R. McLaren has a lot of different models now, different variants, and it's getting hard to keep up. But if you're looking for one that's ultra high performance, track focused, this might be the car for you. Or you could get the 600LT, or the 675LT, or the 765LT, or the P1 GTR. There are a lot of options. Anyway, now it's time to give the 620R a DOUGSCORE. And the DOUGSCORE is here compared to many rivals and relevant McLaren models. The 620R gets pretty much the same score as the 600LT, except the 620R loses a point in value since it's more expensive than the 600LT without, in my opinion, offering dramatically more anything, really. Still, it's an amazing car, so it does well here, but I must say the market is getting quite saturated with all these McLaren models to the point where these reviews are starting to get kind of repetitive.